Hi there, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to walk you through some of the frequently asked questions related to IELTS listening. Let's get started. Now, the first question, what is the format of IELTS listening test? Sometimes students have this confusion. What is exactly happening, or how is it structured? What are the different things that you hear in IELTS listening test? So let's look. What is the format? Now, there would be 4 sections in your listening test. There would be 4 sections, section 1, 2, 3 and 4. And each section, that is based on each section, there would be 10 questions. That is, you'll be listening the entire audio, and the entire audio would be divided into 4 different sections. And matching each of these 4 sections in the audio, there would be 4 different sections in the question booklet as well. Now, as you listen to the first section of the audio, you will be attempting the first section of the question booklet, and each section will contain 10 questions. So, in total, you will have 40 questions. All the 4 sections combined together, you would be having 40 questions. And the audio lasts about 30 minutes. That is, altogether, all the 4 sections together, it extends up to 30 minutes. I hope the structure is clear. Now, the entire listening test is divided into 4 sections. Section 1, you will be listening to one type of audio, and based on that first audio recording, you will have section 1 in the question booklet and 10 questions based on that. Then the audio will move to section 2. You will hear another second audio recording. Based on this audio recording, you will have another set of 10 questions under section 2 in the question booklet. Similarly for section 3 and section 4. So in total, you will be attempting 40 questions with each section having 10 questions. Okay. And the total duration would be approximately 30 minutes. Now, what kind of recordings you get to hear? Recordings usually include monologues, dialogues and discussions. That is, what do you mean by monologue? Monologue means you just hear one person speaking. Dialogue means 2 different voices. Discussion means 2 or more people talking. Now, I said there are 4 different sections. Section 1, 2, 3 and 4. In section 1, you will be hearing, you will be listening to dialogues from an everyday life context. That is, you might hear phone conversation between 2 friends, or a person might be calling up at a restaurant to reserve a table. So the conversation between the person and a receptionist of that restaurant. So these are the kind of conversation that you get to hear in section 1 or part 1 of listening, dialogues happening between 2 people. So you'll hear 2 voices. These 2 voices can be both male voices, both female, or one male and female, whatever it is. So basically there would be 2 people involved in that audio. Okay. Then when you move on to section 2, you will be hearing monologues. In section 2, you will be hearing monologues. That is, only one voice would be heard. One person would be speaking, again from an everyday life context. For example, where do you hear one person speaking in an everyday life context? That radio broadcast. Maybe a radio broadcast will be played in the section 2 of your listening test, or it can be a tourist guide giving information about a place you visit. So such kind of audios you hear in section 2 of the listening test. Only one voice. Then moving on to section 3, it would be a discussion. That is, with 2 or more people involved, and the context is not everyday life context. It will be an academic context. That is, the conversation will have an academic tone, or the people would be having discussion based on academic matter. For example, maybe you can hear a discussion happening between or happening among 2 or 3 students on a seminar paper or whatever it is. So that is what you hear in section 3, a discussion based on an academic topic. Then section 4, again it is a monologue. Section 4 is again a monologue, but unlike section 1, where it was based on a daily life context, here it would be based on an academic context. Maybe a professor giving a class based on a particular paper, somebody giving a speech on healthy diet. So such kind of audio you will hear in section 4. From an academic perspective, you will be hearing the talk. Monologue, again only single voice would be heard. So the pattern is like this. In section 1, monologue from everyday life context. Section 2, dialogue happening between two people, again from everyday life context. Section 3 and 4 are based on academic context, and 3 you will hear a discussion, and 4 you hear a monologue, a kind of presentation. Okay, this is how the format goes. I hope that's clear. Now another question. How many times do I hear the audio? How many times can you hear the audio? Suppose like while listening to the test, while listening to the audio, while you're doing your IELTS listening test, in between you got distracted and you raise your hands and say that, sorry, like in between I got distracted, I just want the audio to be repeated. Is that possible? No, not at all. The audio would be played only once. Each recording, there'll be 4 different recordings, section 1, 2, 3 and 4, and each recording will be played only once, which means that you have to be very attentive, vigilant and focused while doing your listening test. The recording will not be repeated. Okay. Then what types of questions are there? The types of questions that you get in your listening test. Just now we saw the kind of recordings that you hear, monologues, dialogues, discussions and all. These are the things that you hear in the audio recordings, and now you have a question booklet which will have questions tagged to those audio recordings, right? So what kind of questions do you get? Now these are the kind of questions that you get. Completion task, as the name indicates, completion means something in incomplete form would be given to you, and there would be gap spaces or blanks, and you need to fill in those blanks as you listen to the audio. It can be a note completion. For example, it can be a form like this, which contains details like name, age might be written here 31, name, in place of name you would be having a blank space. So as you listen to the audio, you have to complete this. That is what you mean by completion task. Then MCQs, something very common, a popular question type, wherein you listen to the audio and you'll have options like A, B, C, and as you listen to the audio, you have to choose the most appropriate option. That is MCQs. Then, and sometimes students find it challenging as well. Then maps. Maps, as the name indicates, the layout of a place would be given. For instance, like the layout of a college would be given with different sections marked like A, B, C and so on. And in the audio, they would be giving instructions as to what is A. A might be a classroom, B might be library, C might be staff room. So as you listen to the audio, you have to find out each alphabet refers to what, whether it's a classroom or whether it is library. Now here I have said this based on the layout of a college or a school. Now it can be a park. So based on that, what are the things that you see in a park? So based on that also you can get audio. Okay, so map is the layout of a place. It can be a school, a park or a museum, whatever it is. Okay, then another kind of question is matching questions. In matching questions you will be having 2 lists, A, B, C, D, and then you will have another list 1, 2, 3, and it's simple. As you listen to the audio, you have to match 1 to 1. A detail from or an entry from one list to an entry in the other list. Match the following. This is something which you would have done in schools, right? So again, this is another question type which you get to hear in your listening test, matching from one set to another set. Then selecting options from a list. Now selecting options from a list, it's more or less a multiple choice question, but unlike the standard multiple choice question wherein you select the most appropriate option, here you will be asked to select more than one right answer. You would be given a list from A, B, C, D, E, F, and maybe you are asked to select the most or select 3 things that you hear from the audio, which means that you have to select 3 right answers. That's what you mean by selecting options from a list, not one option, but options from a given list. So these are the kind of questions that you get in your IELTS listening test. Completion task, fill in the blanks. MCQs, multiple choice, choose one right answer. Maps, a layout will be given and you will have to label that map. Matching question, 2 sets would be given and you will have to match one entry from one set to the appropriate one in the other set based on what you hear in the audio. Then selecting options from a list is selecting more than one option from a given list based on what you hear from the audio. These are the question types. Now let's see another frequently asked question. Can I make notes during the test? Am I allowed to scribble on the question booklet or write down something on the question booklet? Yes or no? Of course, yes. You can make notes. You can write notes on the question paper while listening. That is, you see, when you're doing the listening test, as I've mentioned earlier, the audio recording, each audio recording would be played only once, which means that you have to be really fast. As you listen to something in the audio, you have to immediately note it down because you'll not be hearing it for the second time. So when you feel that, like suppose now, for instance, there's a completion task and there is a question, occupation and question number 4 and a blank space is given. Now you hear that the person works as somebody is interviewing. One person is interviewing another person, a kind of audio that you can hear in part 1 of your listening test. Let me make it clear. Now suppose you are registering a form. Now the person who is filling this form, collecting details from you, would be asking like you work as, or what is your work? And you hear the other person replying that I am an accountant. So like as you listen to the audio in the question booklet, I need not write accountant in the right spelling in the full-fledged form. No, for my understanding, even if I write accountant, okay, or accountant like this, that is fine, because in the question booklet I can write it in any way which I can understand, or sorry, rather you can understand. So you can scribble down the answers as you listen to the audio in any shortest form in which you can later on recall. Okay, so of course you can make such notes in the question booklet, and like later at the end of the listening test, at the end of the 30 minutes of all the 4 audio recordings, you will be given 10 minutes of transfer time, during which you will have to transfer the answers which you have noted down in the question booklet onto the answer sheet. During that time, you have to make sure that you write down the answers rightly with the correct spelling. Now all these you would have done in the question booklet, and now you have an answer sheet also. Now while writing, this is the question booklet, okay? Assume that this is the question booklet, and similarly you have an answer sheet with question numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. Now while writing the answer for question number 4 onto the answer sheet, I cannot write it in this short form. I would have to expand it and should be writing it with the appropriate spelling. So here I will be writing accountant. Okay, in the question booklet, in whatever form which you can understand, you can write it there. But when you're writing onto the answer sheet or transferring it onto the answer sheet, everything should be in the right perfect way. So of course you are allowed to make notes in the question booklet, and while transferring you have to do it in the appropriate way. You have 10 minutes to transfer the answers which you have noted down in the question booklet onto the answer sheet. Considering this is a paper-based test, okay? If you're taking a computer-based test, there's no transfer time. You just have 2 minutes at the end of the test to verify everything. There's no separate transfer time. Now, another question. Is the listening test same for academic and general training? We had a video regarding reading, frequently asked questions related to IELTS reading. In that, one of the questions was, the first question was, is the reading same for academic and general training? Of course it is not. There are a lot of differences with regard to the content. So now the question here is the listening same for academic and general? What do you think? Yes, the listening test is identical, exactly the same for both academic and the general training version. Now another question, what accents are used? You know that you listen to English audio recordings in your IELTS listening test, 4 different types of audio recordings. What kind of accents do you get to hear? Now the kind of accents are commonly heard accents. British, Australian, American and Canadian accents are the most common kind of accents that you get to hear in your listening test. So you can actually get familiarized with each of these accents listening to podcasts or videos, whatever it is. You need to know that these are the kind of accents that you should be familiar with while attempting your IELTS listening test. Then another question, How does difficulty progress? That is, you know that now, by now you know that there are 4 different sections. Is the difficulty level same across all these 4 levels, or does it progress? It gets slightly harder from section 1 to section 4. That is, the section 1 would be the easiest one, and once you move from 1 to 2, it becomes slightly harder, then 3 again harder, and section 4 would be the hardest of the lot. That is how the difficulty level progresses in your listening test. It progresses from section 1 to section 4, section 1 being the easiest and section 4 being the most difficult. How important is spelling? This I've already mentioned while taking that example of accountant. Yes, spellings must be accurate. No compromise on the spellings. If you make a spelling mistake, definitely that can cause you to lose your scores, because there is no option or there is no system as half mark. If your answer has to get 1 mark, there are 40 questions and each question carries 1 mark. Now, if you are to get 1 mark for a question, for a completion task when you will be writing a word or a short phrase. So when you're writing that word for that answer, if you have to get 1 mark for that answer, including the spelling, the answer should be correct. If there is a spelling mistake, you're not going to get 1 mark for that question. Okay, so which means that spellings are really important. They must be accurate. Can I use abbreviations? Now, what do you mean by abbreviations? Short forms. Are short forms allowed in listening test? So if it's a completion task, can I write a short form? For instance, now again let me put the example of occupation. Okay, and you hear in the audio like person A is asking person B, what is your work or what job do you do? And the other person is reply that I work in information technology. Now, like if you hear information technology in the audio, can you write IT here in the on the answer sheet? Is it allowed or not? No, you cannot do that. You have to write the answers exactly like how you hear it in the audio recording, unless specifically allowed. If it is given in the instruction that you may use short forms, of course then you can go for using short forms, but such kind of instructions don't generally appear. 199% of the times it happens like whatever you hear it in the audio, you will have to write it exactly the same way onto the answer sheet. So if you hear information technology, you cannot cut short it to IT when you are writing the answer onto the answer sheet. No abbreviations. Are answers in order? Now this is another common question or common concern that students have. That is, for instance, you'll be having in the question booklet, this is your question booklet, and you might have questions like 1, 2, 3, 4. And is it for sure that like the answers you will be hearing it in order in the audio? That is, the answer to question number 1 will be heard first, then 2, then 3, then 4. Is it the same sequence? Now, what do you think? Yes, usually. I have added the word usually because 99.9% of the times it happens like that. That is, you will be hearing the questions follow the audio sequence. Very rarely, 0.01% of the times, it might happen that maybe they might mention the answer to question number 3 and then they might go back to 2 and then get back to 4. It happens very rarely. Most of the times, or usually or generally, I would say that the questions will follow the audio sequence. Okay. Then what if I miss an answer? You miss an answer, what can be done? Nothing can be done, like as in you cannot go back to the audio. So the only thing that can be done is you have to stay calm and focused and try to get back on track using the keywords so that you don't miss out the answers for the rest of the questions. Stay calm and focus on the following questions. Do not dwell on the missed part. What is lost is lost. Don't cry over spilled milk. You're not going to get back that audio. So just stay focused and try to get back on track and try to find out the answers for the remaining questions. How can I improve my listening skills? This is another common question. How can you improve your listening skill? There is no shortcut for that. Practice, practice, practice. Keep practicing a lot of standard Cambridge IELTS listening practice materials. You can listen to a lot of English podcasts, watch English shows, web series, whatever it is, wherein native speakers are speaking English. If you listen to a lot of such audios, you get acclimatized with this English listening the way in which native speakers speak, and that is going to definitely improve your listening skill. Along with practicing the IELTS listening test, you should also be doing all this listening to podcasts, listening or watching series. It can be even news broadcasts, whatever it is, native speakers speaking English, listening to that, it's definitely going to help you. Okay, and also focus on keywords and synonyms. That is another thing. This is another thing that you need to keep in mind. You should not expect that you have a lot of words, you see a lot of words in the question booklet. Don't expect the same words to be heard in the audio. Mostly you will be hearing the synonyms of the words you see in the question booklet in the audio. So you should be careful or open to synonyms as well. All these are going to definitely improve your listening score. Okay, so I hope I have covered some of the common frequently asked questions that candidates have related to IELTS listening. So with that, we come to the end of this video. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more such videos. Thank you.
Medcity International Academy. Trusted hands forever.